Hello, hello. How's it going, guys? Mistwater here, also known as Lightwater. It's been a while. I've been taking a nice break. Been spending some time with the family, know, just doing normal people shit. Um, so today we're gonna be talking about Disc Priest in Shadowlands, and I've been kind of looking over stuff a little bit because I know Shadowlands is gonna be Shadow or Disc Priest is gonna be a lot more complicated. I got Shadowlands on the brain. So I want to make sure that I didn't like botch this too bad. This piece has always been something that sort of eluded me. I don't know. I've never really been interested in the recent Disc Priest since Legion. I tried playing it one time. I didn't really like it. I know a lot of people love it. Um, and I'm fine with it being sort of like the one atonement healer. I generally think that we should only really have like one atonement healer kind of type. Um, but obviously they're pushing for healers to do a lot of damage. So, but yeah, let's get into the changes because that's what you guys are here for. Okay, so if you watched the holy video, then you know some of these already because a lot of them are class-wide. Um, for Shadowlands, Blizzard's really trying to make the classes feel more like what you're picking, and then the spec is just like a small specialty, right? Which try as they might, they can't undo all the damage that they've done. So the specs are obviously going to still feel a lot different, but I think it's a step in the right direction. Um, anyways, Mind Blast, Mind Soothe, Power Infusion, Shadow Word Death, Shadow Word Pain are all baseline now, and Power Infusion got reworked. Um, so all of this stuff is just new ranks. One of the things I really like what they're doing is for the leveling up process, you know, for like fresh characters, they sort of give you nerfed versions of the spells and passives, and then there's a rank 2 that you get later on, which kind of restores it back to what it originally was. So leveling up process should feel a lot more like, I think, good actually now, because you're going to be getting power. You know, you have stuff to look forward to. You can actually see the next level and be like, oh, I get rank 2 of Fade, or rank 2 of this, rank 2 of that. You know, obviously rank 2 Fade and rank 2 Master Spell aren't exactly like, oh my god, that's so amazing. But it's something, right? Right? Like, it sounds stupid, but if they take away part of it and then hang on, Sam. It sounds stupid, but if they don't give you the whole cookie right away and they kind of dole it out over time, it makes the reward so much better if you're leveling up, right? So, kind of a random tangent, but I do like that change. Mind Soothe, I mean, it might see some play in Mythic Plus, honestly. Only affects Humanoids and Dragon King, just like Vanilla. Oh, okay, Power Infusion. So I talked about it in the Holy Priest one, but you can now infuse other targets. It no longer reduces the mana cost, so it's just a haste buff for 20 seconds. 25% haste for 20 seconds. I believe the spell is free to cast, right? It's probably going to cost a global, you know. Yeah, it's free. So a 2-minute cooldown. I don't know, it's such a weird thing, right? Obviously, as a Disc Priest, you're almost always going to PI yourself, right? Disc Priest actually really loves haste because they can fit it into really niche burst windows. Super important. Power Word Fortitude for all priests got reduced to 5%. I'm fine with this. Personally, I'm okay with this as long as there's no scrolls in the game. But I'm guessing there's still going to be scrolls in the game, so I don't really know. I think that, you know, and when you're in a raid and you didn't have a priest and you were missing some stamina, I felt like that was a good reason to bring a priest. Same with all the other buffs, right? And I think that's something that they should try to keep. So hopefully they don't have something else that gives 5% stam, and you know, they're like exclusive bonuses, so either one counts. Shadow Word Death is a thing now. We'll get into that in a little bit. Okay, here's the first of the kind of important changes, right? So Smite got its mana cost increased from 0.5 to 0.7. Also, Smite no longer has that absorption effect, right? They moved that to the new spell, Mind Blast. We'll get to that in a little bit. Smite's mana cost being increased from 0.5 to 0.7 might not seem like that much, but because it was sort of the spell that you spammed a lot, I think that 0.2 will actually add up. I mean, and if you think about it just from like the spell's perspective, that's like a 40% mana cost increase on it, right? So that is a nerf. I don't know how many smites that one person would cast in a fight. Maybe like 100, maybe like 50. Still, either way, this will be a good nerf. By good nerf, I mean it'll be a nerf. So they have the same thing as the other ones. They have Holy Nova with the 0.5 seconds off his GCD, right? So this means that With 0 haste, your Holy Nova cooldown is essentially 1 second. And then obviously with a lot of haste, you could get it down all the way to potentially. I mean, in theory, if you have maximum haste, like during a Bloodlust and shit, couldn't you get Holy Nova's global cooldown in the 0.25 second section now that I'm thinking about it? Because you could get to 0.75 before, right? So 0.75 minus 0.5 would be 0.25. That would be insane if I saw a Disc Priest casting 4 Holy Novas a second. That would be hilarious to watch. Or a Holy Priest for that matter. That would actually be pretty funny. I actually think it would be kind of effective. That would be hilarious. I mean, their mana the mana would go down so fast. So I don't know what this is here. It says Prayer of Mending is now instant cast. I looked all over and I couldn't see that they had Prayer of Mending, but yet they have the Prayer of Mending passive. So maybe they have Palm? Not sure. Not really worth talking about because it doesn't interact with the rest of the Disc Priest kit, right? So Shadow Word Death, I don't believe Disc Priest said this before. It's a free spell, I believe. All right, let's double check. Yeah, it looks free. Wait, that was the passive. I'm pretty... Yeah, okay. So it'll have a 15-second cooldown because that reduces it. Okay, so it's a 15-second cooldown. It does 115% spell power damage, and if you don't kill a target, you take the damage. I mean, it's free, right? I think the fact that it's free means you still use it on cooldown, regardless of whether or not it's going to hurt you, right? Because the amount of atonements will more than make up for it. As long as you have 2 atonements up, it's neutral, right? So if you have 3 or more atonements out, you're netting positive. Plus, you're probably gonna have leech, and so I wonder if the damage that you do to yourself plus the enemy both count for leech, right? Let's say you have like 10% leech, and if you do 115% spell power damage to yourself, do you get healed for 11.5%? That would shave off some of the costs. Kind of reminds me of like stacking leech with Light of the Martyr, right? On Paladin. Okay. Sorry, I'm all over the place. We're gonna come back to Covenant abilities when we understand the changes a little bit more. Okay, so you have a couple of different talent changes. They're not too crazy, but let's get into them. So Light's Caress talent. This enables Disc Priests to heal their allies by blessing them with Power Word Barrier and healing them again if they're under the barrier when it expires. So let's go ahead and look. So this is in the last row. So this is a new level 50 talent. Allies are healed for 210% spell power when they gain the benefit of your Power Word Barrier. Oh, you know what? Okay, that's actually a little bit better than I thought it was. I thought it was you throw it down and anybody who's inside of it gets healed. But it's when they first cross into it. Okay, I like that. Barrier, and then they're healed again for 210% spell power if they are under your barrier when it expires. Okay, so that's the part that kind of sucks because if you watch really hard mythic fights, or really just fights in general, people are under the barrier for a little bit and then they typically move out of it because there's usually like AoE damage or something. So that second part will definitely not have the most use. Also, people run into the barrier for damage to come out. They don't really run into the barrier to get healed. They're just trying to reduce damage. So the first part might overheal too, right? Especially if you're pre-casting it on a full health raid, right? Sometimes the raid will be full health, the boss is about to go insane, you throw down the barrier, and the boss starts pulsating and everybody takes massive damage. That first heal would be completely wasted, right? So what are you going to have? People stand outside for the first tick so they can walk in for the first tick so they get healed? Maybe. I don't know. I think it was a bit of a whiff on Blizzard's part to make this not an absorption, personally, right? I understand that absorption would scale fairly exponentially with the damage reduction, but I think that would be kind of the allure of picking the talent, right? A heal, when they cross into it, doesn't quite make as much sense, and a heal, if they're in it still, when it ends, also doesn't kind of make sense. Typically, damage windows aren't as long as the barrier's duration, and if they are, then they weren't the most DPS while they were active anyways, right? So staying under this dome isn't necessarily the greatest. I'm nitpicking this really hard, but that's because I think it has a lot of positional requirements. Now let's look at the best case scenario. If you just use this as a heal, it's kind of insane, right? Let's assume both heals get off. This is 420% spell power coefficient on 20 raid members once every 3 minutes. I think I did the math already over here, but we can do it again. So 420 times 20 is 8,400% spell power coefficient once every 3 minutes. This is kind of nuts. Your average like heal is kind of like 260% coefficient, right? So it's like 32 heals every every 3 minutes. So that is pretty gnarly. I think people are probably going to undersell this and think it's not the greatest because obviously it unfortunately shares the row with evangelism. But I wouldn't be surprised if someone could effectively use this and it turns out to be like 10% of their fucking healing or something, you know? So who knows? I still think it's just really wonky, and it would be much better as an absorption shield. I think it would make a lot more sense if someone crossed into it, got an absorption shield, and when it ended, it shattered, and then healed everybody. Right? Wouldn't that sort of make more sense? So you cross into it, you get an absorption shield for the period of the damage reduction. Obviously, it eats through the absorption shield, and then the dome has weathered all of this damage coming in, and so there's cracks that appear. Maybe this talent adds like 1 more second to its duration. Why not? For the hell of it. And when it shatters, it heals everybody around it in a 40-yard radius for that amount. I think that would just seem thematically way more interesting, way more cool. Just the fact that you get to change what the dome looks like would be really cool. Like over the course of its duration, cracks start to appear. And then it's like, boom, and explodes, and the whole raid gets healed. That would just look so cool. And it would be about the same healing as a revival. So, I think that just would look cool. So, if you're listening, Blizzard. Okay. Shadow Covenant. New talent. Oh, they reworked it. This instantly heals a chosen hero and 4 other injured allies within a small area and moderately increases the damage the priest deals for a short period of time, during which they cannot cast holy spells. This is a little bit deceptive, because what it really does, if you look over here, is it costs 4% of your base mana, 20-second cooldown, instantly heal the target, so it's instant, no cast time, and 4 other injured allies, smart healing, for 135% spell power coefficient. So what we're looking at here is 675% spell power coefficient instantly for only 4% mana, so that's very good. Then it says increases shadow damage you deal by 25% for 7 seconds. Very odd. But during this period, you cannot cast holy spells. Now this was a hard one to wrap your head around because now you have so many different damage spells. Basically, during this period, I think you can only cast Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, and Mind Blast. Now, if you have all of those up, and by those up I mean basically Mind Blast and Shadow Word Death, you could make this 7 seconds not that bad. It is worth noting that this doesn't apply atonement at all, right? So this would be kind of weird. So like maybe you'd put out your atonement spells, then you'd Shadow Covenant, and then you do damage, and then your damage would at least be increased by 25% on those spells. But like once you use Shadow Word Death, once you use Mind Blast, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like tab Shadow Word Pain? Because you don't really have any of the shadow damage abilities, to my knowledge. Because Penance, Smite, Holy Fire, all of those are holy spells, right? So, yeah. I don't know. If ever there was going to be a talent that could pop off and make some kind of OP build, it's definitely something like Shadow Covenant. I just can't really think of it right now. It's probably because I'm not a Disc player. But maybe there's some kind of thing, right? Anytime you give like a 25% buff to damage for a certain period and such a powerful heal in the initial part, who knows? Mind Blast. So Mind Blast will now provide a burst of damage and then do an atonement healing along with an absorption shield for a significant mana cost. So the absorption shield that was on Smite, just think of it being on Mind Blast now, right? And I believe it's 200% coefficient. Yeah. Okay, so you hit for 120% spell power damage, a 15-second recharge on Mind Blast, 3% mana, 1.5-second cast time. It's just one charge. Curious. But then it puts an absorption shield on somebody. Oh, never mind. Correction. It reduces the damage the target does. Okay, got it. Prevents the next damage they do, which would have just gone on the tank anyways, which would have been like mitigated. So I wonder if it's like pre-mitigation and post-mitigation. That's kind of relevant, but whatever. It'll still get counted as a healing for you, right? This is like whatever. I think this is just more incentive for you to hit Mind Blast on cooldown. But again, I think a lot of the value of Mind Blast is still going to be coming from the atonement. So if you have no atonement, so I still don't think you just cast Mind Blast for the absorption, right? Because if we look at it for just the heal, you know, is a 200% heal worth 3% mana? I'd say no, right? But it's not the worst. It's really not the worst to even just slam it, right? So that's kind of interesting. That means I feel like Mind Blast is kind of like the thing you're always looking to get off cooldown, and I wonder if it's going to be one of those cooldowns that's like reduced with haste. It doesn't look like it's going to be, but we'll see. Okay, let's get into the actual Disc Priest specialization changes here. You have Desperate Prayer now. I don't know if Disc Priest had Desperate Prayer before. I don't think they did. So they're adding the Disc Priest core passive, or at least a part of it, to Shadow Word Pain and Mind Blast. I have no idea exactly what this means. It says value minus 34%. I am so fucking sick of these core hidden passives in all the healers. Every healer now except for Shaman has them. Every healer used to have them. Shaman was the only healer they saw fit to remove it. I really wish that they would just properly fix the coefficients for these fucking spells instead of having some lazy ass tuning knob that they can just adjust. I'm not going to get into it too much, but it just muddies the water and makes it very difficult for me to do any kind of theory crafting. Like, for example, minus 34%. Okay, is this already factored in or not? Right? Does Shadow Word and Pain do 16.5% instant with a 74.4% afterwards? Also, I noticed that this says 12 seconds, so they didn't factor in the fact that it's 16 seconds, right? There's so much like hemming and hawing and having to readjust and reverse engineer all of these values just to like find the actual value. I couldn't possibly imagine a normal person coming to a website to try to figure out how their class changed and understanding any of it. It's insane to me. It's insane. We have hidden passives. We have passives in the talent trees, right? Like all of these passives, passive. It's just insane to me. It's like it's so much to memorize, right? Like think about how many things just go into trying to understand what Shadow Word Pain does. Okay, well you read this. Well, this is the number before they added 4 more seconds. So how would you add numbers to this? How would you figure it out? Well, what you do is you know that since it adds 4 seconds, that its tick rate is 4. So you divide 12 by 4. Oh, look, each tick is 33%. So you find out what 33% of each one of these is, and then add that to it again, right, to find out what 16 seconds would be. But wait, you're not done yet, because value minus 34%. So now you've got to go through multiple websites to find out if this is already a pre-calculated 34% or not. If it's not, make sure you minus 34% into the total to find out what the actual amount of Shadow Word Pain does. What? Like, this is insane. And you know what's crazy? We're going to do it. I mean, I mean me and like the 3 other Spurgs who watch my channel. But it's ludicrous because nobody could ever hope to look at this and understand what's going on if they were trying to do a decent amount of research on their class before it's actually going to happen. Yeah, my rant's done. Remove the hidden passive. The shit's already complicated enough with there being passives in your kit that just adds time when you don't clearly write the base for week. You know, like why not? Whatever. Let's continue on. For some reason, Disc Priest has Flash Heal still, I mean it gets Flash Heal. The cost is going to be 3.6% for 135% spell power heal. Look, I like the fact that they're keeping around all these spells to make you feel like you're still, you know, a priest. But you couldn't find a way for it to be not an absolute fucking trap of a spell to cast. 135% for 3.6% mana. This is like 3 times worse than any other spell the Disc Priest has. This is like hilarious. If you ever see a Disc Priest casting Flash Heal in Shadowlands, guys, just disown them. Take them off your friends list. Don't group with them. This is a mistake. I mean, I guess that we can thank them for that, right? It's like, it's a noob detector. You ever see a Disc Priest casting Flash Heal? Hey, that's a bad one, huh? Holy Nova. Same one as the Holy Priest, which is nice. Doesn't have any, like, different modifications. Holy Nova is going to have obviously more value for a Disc Priest than like a Holy Priest because it does damage, right? And that damage gets transferred to Atonement as well as the healing you would do initially. Who knows? With that GCD change thing we mentioned before, where it reduces the cast time by 0.5 or the cooldown, there could be some cases where you just spam Holy Nova super fast, especially if there's lots of enemies around. I'd say some cases, I'm sure if we mapped it out, it'd be something like, you know, if there's like 6 or more enemies or something, then you cast Holy Nova. But yeah, I mean, you still have the heal here, so even for a Disc Priest, a 20-man stack of Holy Nova wouldn't be like the absolute worst to cast. If you got no, like if everybody stacked on top of the boss, I mean, it wouldn't be the worst, right? You do a little bit of damage with a little bit of atonement healing, and you do a 20 target cleave of 10% spell power, right? So that's a 200% spell power heal. Yeah. Penance. Mana cost got reduced by 10%, so from 2 to 1.8% mana. Kind of curious. I mean, I guess they're just really trying to push Penance in being the efficient heal now. Obviously, besides Smite. Okay, so they baked in the part where Penance can just heal people now, right? Is that what I'm seeing? Because Penance couldn't be used to heal people. You had to take a talent previously. Or maybe I'm thinking of a different expansion. I don't know. Either way, you can use it to heal now. So you either cause it doing 40 times 3 damage, or you have it doing 82 times 3 healing. Okay, over 2 seconds, castable while moving. Alright, so Penance just seems like it has all that utility baked into it. Cast while moving, very cheap, very efficient. What's its cooldown? 9-second cooldown. If I remember it correctly, its cooldown is reduced by Ace? No, probably not. I wish I had the beta, dude. I could just like instantly see if, you know, some of the shit is written properly. Okay, so 9-second cooldown. Cool. Obviously, since the damage it does is half as much as the healing, it breaks equal if you have 4 atonements. If you have more than 4 atonements, you always want to use it to do damage, assuming your atonements are on people that actually need to be healed. Pretty good spell. I think you'll obviously be using this along with Mind Blast on cooldown. I think the spec's pretty straightforward. I mean, you get all these extra spells, but they all have cooldowns, but they're all better than your other spells that don't have cooldowns, so obviously you just cast your spells with cooldowns, right? I mean, is it really that crazy? I mean, I think you just weak aura every spell that has a cooldown, make it pop up in your face, and you cast it. Obviously you want to line up your atonements, right? Because you don't just want to use Penance and Mind Blast when you have no atonements up, but yeah, I mean, I still think the spec for the most part is going to be all about burst healing, right? That's how this priest always is. Power radiance, what did they change? They made the healing a little bit higher. Everything looks the same. Atonement's for 60% of its normal duration. I think that's how it was before. Maybe it was 50%, but I guess it's 60. So 60% is exactly 9 seconds. So it gives 9 seconds of atonement. Okay, so it just does a little bit more healing. Didn't have its mana cost increased. Oh, its mana cost is 6.5%. That's gnarly, dude. Holy shit. Okay. Power Word Shield. So this one got a kind of a big change. I would say this is one of the biggest changes. Its spell power went from 154% to 200% now. So its healing went up by like 33% basically. But the mana cost went from 2.7 to 3.4% base mana. That's insane. That's a jump of 0.7%. Yeah, Power Word Shield could cost like 25% more mana now. That's going to be really noticeable when people are going to... Oh, also, it says you cannot shield the target again for 7.5 seconds. Is that how it always was? Yeah, because you had Rapture, right, which allowed you to bypass that. It's weakened soul debuff. Now available to all specs. Okay, so all specs do have Power Word Shield. Yeah, Disc Priests use Power Word Shield a lot to apply atonements, right? Your only way of applying atonement is Shadowmend, Power Word Shield, and Power Word Radiance, I believe. So the fact that one of your main atonement appliers just went up by so much mana cost is insane. Shadowmend, wrap an ally in shadows, healing them for 220. So this received a nice little buff, right? So almost like a proportional buff. Shadowmend's 220% spell power, but at a price, they'll take 220% spell power divided by 20 damage every 1 second until they have taken. Okay, yeah. So basically, Shadowmend will start hurting them if they don't take enough damage. But it's like really good on tanks, right? Because tanks always going to take damage. Mana cost is increased from 3% to 3.5%. Wow, another massive mana cost increase. So, like, let me get this straight. Your only ways to apply atonement is from a 3.4% mana costing spell, a 3.5%, and a 6.5%. That's insane, dude. Applying atonement is gonna cost so much. It's just gonna cost a lot of mana. But like, what else are you gonna do? Like, that's the spec. That's like the whole point of the spec is atonement healing. Um, Yikes. I don't know. A word of so Shadow or Pain, a word of darkness that causes 16% instantly and deals additional. Okay, I don't know if this is representing the 16 to 12 because you get back to 4 seconds when you later on as you level up, right? See, like this is really annoying because the spell is actually 16-second dot, and as you level up, you get back to 4 seconds. So. But also, this change might represent that hidden passive that we were talking about, the hidden core passive, because Shadow Word Pain was one of the ones affected. I don't really know where to begin. I'm just going to assume Shadow Word Pain is kind of like how it was back in BFA. It's a decent dot. It's pretty efficient as far as damage per mana spent. It's got 1.8% mana cost. My guess is it'll do okay damage, and as far as efficiency goes, it's probably better than a lot of your other damage spells, with the exception of probably Smite, right? Also, it's instant, so you can use it on the move, right? Mind Blast, rank 2, Smite absorbs. Yeah, so this is the 200% absorption shield I was talking about. Or, sorry, damage prevented that the boss will do. Yeah, we already read about that. We went over the talents already. Okay, let's look at the Covenant stuff. Okay, so Kyrian, spoiler, I think is going to be the best one, personally. I think it just spells Dispriest. So, Kyrian, Boon of the Ascended, draw upon the power of the Ascended for 10 seconds. So it's a 10-second thing. Granting access to Ascended Nova, replacing Discipline and Holy Smite with Ascended Blast. So you have Ascended Blast. I went ahead and looked up Ascended Blast. So here's Ascended Blast. It's a 100-yard range, instant. Blast an enemy with pure anima, causing 250% spell power, arcane damage, and healing an ally for 100% damage. Grants 4 stacks of Boon of Ascended. So for Dispriest, this is 125% atonement heal before mastery, and just heals somebody for 100% anyways, right? So it's a very, very powerful for Dispriest thing. I'm assuming this transfers to atonement. If it doesn't, obviously, then it's dog shit. But if it does, it's amazing. Anyways, so also your movement speed is increased by 50% while you use it. Upon expiration, releasing a Ascended Eruption, explode for 150% spell power damage to all enemies, and you do 200% spell power healing to all allies within 15 yards. This increases by 3% for each stack of Boon of the Ascended. So because each cast gives you 4 stacks, that means each cast increases the number of this explosion at the end by 12%. It's a 10-second duration. So with like an average amount of haste, let's say, I think you could realistically get off like 7, or let's say like 8 casts maybe. This blast will be doing like 100% more, right? So we could realistically say this will explode for 300% and it'll be a 400% heal at the end. A 400% heal is damn near close to like a Holy Word Serenity heal. Like that's insane. That's so much healing for everybody and who's next to you. So I think it's really important that people are on top of you within the 15 yards when it ends. Also, the entire damage that you were doing, if it's affected by atonement, is also insane. Plus a 300%, finale isn't bad. Obviously, every cast is 250%, right? So it's like, okay, whatever. Here's the thing, right? It lasts for 10 seconds and then it explodes. So the tricky part about this is that Power Word Radiance only lasts for 9 seconds. Its Atonement only lasts for 9 seconds. So I think if you run Boon of the Ascended, you are almost forced into running Evangelism, right? Obviously. I'm already seeing the combo, right? You essentially Power Word Shield, Power Word Shield, Power Word Shield, Power Word Shield. You put 4 Atonements. You double cast Radiance, you Evangelism. So now you have 14 Atonements out, all with nice lengthy durations. Then you pop Boon of the Ascended, and for 10 seconds you essentially solo heal the raid, and then you fat explode at the end, healing them again. And so you're a god once every 3 minutes, essentially. So yeah, this is clearly going to be used to cheese some crazy mechanics or something. Also, I mean, this piece is going to be doing insane damage during this moment. I mean, this is some fat damage that they'll be doing. I can see this being really good in like PvP and shit too. Like cast while moving, 50% movement speed. You just boom the Ascended, and each thing is just hitting harder and harder and harder, right? Kind of insane, and then explodes. Obviously, this is a small area of effect, 15 yards for the healing at the end. So you'll be really wanting to stack at the end, but still, I mean, all the atonement healing alone would be kind of worth it. Okay, enough sucking the Carrion Covenant abilities, Dick. Okay, let's move on. Vinther, I think this is a good alternative if there is no burst healing to be done, if it's all rot. Mind games, assault an enemy's mind, so you do 200% spell power damage, shadow, instantly. Well, 1.5 second cast time, but the thing that's important here to note is it's free. It doesn't cost any mana cost. So it's a free 200% spell power damage. Then you reversing the perception of reality, so then it does another 400% heal, or 800% depending on how you look at it, right? Because it reverses the damage. So instead of them doing the next 400% of your spell power as damage, it instead heals for 400% of your spell power. So think of it as like an 800% heal. Obviously, you're only going to get credit for 400% though. Not bad. Also, it gives you 4% mana. Right, so let's think about what this does. Every 45 seconds, you are going to cast a free damage ability that does damage. Obviously, it'll probably apply atonement. So now you've just done decent healing. This is decent damage to do for free. It's like 3 smites or a mind blast and a half or something. It's free, and it gives you back 4% mana. And it'll prevent some do a little bit of extra healing. So I think my guess is that if there is no burst HPS to be done, then maybe Boon isn't as good. Maybe Mind Games can work, because this is a nice little, you can get quite a few of these off, right? Let's see. 1.5 minutes, you get 2. So 4 of those, you get 8 of these in a fight. 8 times 4 is 30. You'll get about 32% of a mana pool over a 6-minute fight. That's not bad. What is that? 16, 8. 8% more mana on. So if you were to run Mind Games, guys, you would have 8% more mana in a 6-minute fight. So if mana directly translates into healing, that would be 8% more healing. Obviously, that's not how the game works, but you get my point, right? So I think Mind Games is a great throughput talent. It's not going to be flashy. It's not going to do anything cool. It's not going to handle any burst moments, but maybe it'll be worth it just from the mana and the free spell and the free healing. Necrolord, Unholy Nova. Obviously, this one's... God knows how broken this thing's going to be. An explosion of dark healing energy. Heals allies within 15 yards, so another small yard kind of heal, for 150% spell power. And it infects nearby enemies with Unholy Transfusion. Unholy Transfusion deals 200% spell power. So this is another instant, basically free spell on a 1-minute cooldown that does instant damage. It's an instant damage dot, apparently. Deals 200% spell power shadow damage over 15 seconds. Allies who damage this target receive healing for 20% of spell power. We don't know how many instances of healing they can receive per second, or if there's even a cap on it. My guess is they can only receive this healing once every second, or once every 2 seconds, or 3. So yeah, that'll definitely play into how effective it is. It's 0.5% of base mana, so very cheap, and it's instant and only has a 1-minute cooldown. This one's a bit tricky. I mean, it's a 75% atonement heal, because it's half before mastery. So it's cheap, it's free. That was the heal. So it does first of all, it does 150% spell power heal to everybody, which is quite large, actually. That's a decent heal if everyone's stacked, just for free, honestly. I don't think that's a 3,000% coefficient heal for basically for free to the entire raid if you're stacked, once every minute. That's actually kind of insane, now that I'm thinking about it. Okay, interesting. Hmm. I would say if you're stacked the entire fight, Unholy Nova is definitely the winner. Yeah, for sure. That's just a lot of free healing, basically. Um, I don't know. I hate saying let's see how these things play out, but it's difficult for me to get a grasp on it without going hardcore into the math, and I'm not going hardcore into the math until a couple weeks before the expansion drops. So we'll see. All right, Night Fae. I mean, this is laughable. You have three interesting, different, kind of unique Covenant abilities, and then you have this dog shit. Surround yourself with helpful spirits, causing your next 10 spells to cast to aid your target, depending on your chosen spell. So for Disc, Shadow Mend and Mind Blast. The Mind Blast, I don't know how that's going to work. The shield, I'm guessing. Maybe for the tank. But yeah, Shadow Mend and Mind Blast reduce an ally's damage taken by 10% for 15 seconds. Powered Shield, invigorate your target with 2% mana or 20% resource. Power Word Radiance, reduce the cooldowns of one major ability for all targets affected by 3 seconds. So yeah. I mean, you can cast 2 Power Radiances. Everyone who gets healed for each one gets their cooldowns reduced by 3 seconds. One major ability by 3 seconds. Power Shield gives a little bit of mana or resource back to the target. Whoop-de fucking do. It still costs like 3.6% fucking mana or something. Shadow Mend and Mind Blast reducing the ally's damage taken by 10% for 15 seconds is kind of cool. That's like a mini little defensive. I just don't see this being worth it when you look at what the other things got. This is insane. I'm trying to think of the world where this is crazy, and I'm coming up dry here. Because Power Word Shield can't affect a target multiple times, you can't just spam a target, give him 20% resource. Maybe someone could pop off in like PvP if that was to happen, but unless you use, so I guess you'd have to use Phase Blessing in combination with where is it? Is it baseline? That one cooldown. Rapture. For the next 10 seconds, Power Shield. Oh, it's 1.5 second cooldown, or 1.5 minute cooldown as well, so the cooldowns line up. Power Shield absorbs an additional 200%, and maybe cast on targets with Weakened Soul. Okay. Alright, here's the one use I'm thinking of. You pop Phase Blessing, you pop Rapture, you spam a target in PvP with shield after shield after shield, and they get 20% resource every single time you shield them for the next 10 shields. Maybe. Right? Maybe. Maybe that'd be good. I'm not sure who could pop off. We're constantly receiving like massive resource incomes, you know. Also, you really have to make sure that they're not a mana user, right? Because there is almost no mana user in the game who cares about their mana, except for Arcane Mage, and 2% is not going to put a dent into an Arcane Mage. So basically, you don't want to use this with an Arcane Mage. You'd want to use this with someone who's using energy or something. Because they actually care. I don't know. I feel like I'm bending over backwards and performing mental gymnastics to try to make this good. It costs 2% fucking mana to use. At least it's instant. 1.5 minute cooldown. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking when they made this. It seems so interesting, but what they decided each spell to give is such a bad idea. No clue why they were thinking. No clue. Okay, guys, that's pretty much the end. Final thoughts. I'm not a Disc Priest main, and I haven't been for quite some time. And also, I feel like if my knowledge was the weakest in any area, it is Disc Priest, 100%. So, if you made it this far, you know, you should know that. What do I think? I think that they got all of their atonement applying spells. The mana cost on them went way up. So maybe applying atonement is going to be quite a bit more difficult, but I don't really see any other option for the spec because that's kind of the whole point of them. Maybe this means that they need to get innovated now more than ever, or they need some kind of help mana wise. If they're expected to pump out like this crazy burst, it might push them farther and farther into a burst situation, right? Every time your atonement spells mana costs go up, you know what Disc Priests do? They just stop casting them. And then they save them all for a burst period so they can get maximum efficiency out of it, right? And I don't know if like Blizzard realizes that, right? But also your spamming spell got its mana cost increased by a little bit. It seems like they're really trying to make healers go in Shadowlands. And we'll have to see how the Disc Priest does with that. My gut feeling is I think Disc Priests are actually gonna still be kind of okay. But they're gonna have to really rely on these Covenant abilities. These Covenant abilities look like they were made for a Disc Priest rather than a Holy Priest, right? Um, so that is kind of interesting. The Ascendant Boon of the Ascendant seems pretty gnarly, pretty insane. Maybe you combine that with a bunch of other cooldowns. As far as the talents go, I mean, I think the Luminous Barrier needs to just get deleted from the game or changed or altered. There's a lot, much like all the rest of the healers right now. I feel like we suffer from some terrible talents, right? Disc Priest talents are at least a little bit more interesting. Oh yeah, I must have glanced over it, but where's the part where they nerf powered Solus? It was randomly in here. Oh yeah, okay, I just didn't scroll all the way down. Yeah, they changed. Okay, here we go. They reduced the amount the powered Solus heals for, or rather the damage it does. Then they increased the cooldown from 12 to 15 seconds. My guess is it's still affected by haste. Yeah. So the cooldown's still reduced by haste, but it just seems so ridiculous, right? Like I don't know. Powered Solus was so tightly tuned before that I don't really know. Now like, no one's gonna use it. I feel like they've had the biggest battle of their life trying to balance these three. And at the end of the day, they all do the exact same fucking thing. So it's like, who cares? One's a free little damage heal. One's a shorter cooldown on your Mindbender, but it gives you mana back. And then one gives you some mana back on your shields. Like, they sound really, really, really cool. But what's the effect at the end of the day on the gameplay? A little bit more mobility, a little bit more goes, and a passive, right? Like, I don't know. It's just they seem so much cooler than they actually are, I feel like. And by nerfing Powered Solus a little bit more, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's an even playing field now, but it's not like any one of these really jumps out at you and you go, that's the one I want, right? Like, does it really matter at the end of the day, right? I mean, I guess if you're taking Shield Discipline, you kind of have to use Powered Shield over Shadowlands now, right? If you take Powered Solus, you have to use Powered Solus almost on cooldown to get the mana out of it, which doesn't really work necessarily always with Disc Priest rotation. Mindbender doesn't always work out well because just because you can push the button every 1 minute doesn't mean you necessarily want to. Also, I mean, I think the Mindbender does a little bit less damage and lasts a little bit less long than Shadow Fiend. So, yeah. Shadow Fiend at least once every 3 minutes made it like part of a huge cooldown, right? That could be part of that giant bind, this huge moment, or could give you another huge moment. I'm not sure. Was there any other talent changes that we should be aware of? Why this piece even has Divine Star and Halo just blows my mind. It just doesn't really make sense for them, I feel like. But whatever. Lenience is gone. Good. No one liked that. Yeah, I don't know. Disc Priest still remains to be the weird boy spec. It's what all the unique snowflakes want to play. And it is a cool aspect. I won't deny it that. And it certainly most people do consider it to be the hardest spec to play. I think in some ways it is, but in a lot of other ways it's just a very complex memorization of a chain of globals that you have to cast and then a rotation to just be a god during like a 20-second period, right? Like that's been my experience with it. Like is a Disc Priest just ramps, applies a debuff, right? Because they're almost always going to go Schism. It's like they Rapture, shield, double Radiance, Evangelism, Schism, and then they just do all of their bursts, right? Like that's how they always play, and I don't think they're gonna play any different. So the question is like, how can anyone ever go Light's Caress when Evangelism essentially makes an entire go, right? Like it makes a whole healing cooldown moment. I mean this row is laughable. You either take Purge the Wicked or you don't. I mean what? Like I don't know. This row like just doesn't seem like it matters at all. Replaces Shadow or Pain. I mean, this is just good for a cleaving fight, right? Spreads to an additional nearby target when you cast penance on the target. Yeah, I mean, it's like whatever. Sins of the Mini, nothing really changed, right? Like here's the thing, a lot of mana costs and a lot of numbers change, but did the way that Disc Priest change? No, I don't really think so. So if you like the way Disc Priest played before, then you're gonna like it now. I do think you're gonna have some mana issues though this time around, and they nerf Solus, so the way you get the mana, who knows? Maybe that this is a reason, to sort of push Disc Priest to maybe take mind games on Vintir, but what I really think it's going to do is it's just going to push them to be more cooldown focused and less about raw HPS, which is also fine. So, who knows? Who knows? I do think that Disc Priest were a little OP before, so I think some of these nerfs are warranted. However, I think Disc Priest has always done very, very poor for the low skilled or low geared plebs. And I think that that's a issue that Blizzard seems okay with. I would not be okay with it personally. I'm happy to have a spec that has a high skill floor and a high skill ceiling, but I think that the problem is that the skill floor is just so high that it's practically the ceiling in this case, right? It's like if you don't do all of these things in all of this right order, then you're going to do no healing with Disc Priest. And then what's the difference between a God Disc Priest and a Disc Priest that can play Disc Priest? I feel like the bar to even play, to be considered playing Disc Priest is so high that by the time you get there, you're practically an expert anyways, right? So I don't know. I think the spec is pretty confusing. Now it has even more spells. And I think that with the atonement cost increased, that the newbies are just going to find themselves going and doing no healing. And the pros are going to be doing a little bit less healing, but they'll figure it out, right? So who knows? If that's something that people really like in the game, it's okay. But, I mean, if you guys looked at Warcraft logs, the highest discrepancy between Mythic Raiders and, or rather the top-end healers versus bottom-end healers was Disc Priest. And it was by a large margin. So it's clear that the populace as a whole is really struggling with trying to figure out how to play Disc Priest, and they're very low, like very low. So I don't know. I mean, I guess you can always just go Holy, right? But it's not like Holy's the most simple thing either. I mean, Holy has 14 healing spells or something like that, right? So I think both Disc and Holy right now are extremely confusing and actually kind of difficult, with a lot of moving parts and a lot of passives and a lot of spells in general right now. And I'm struggling to find like what spells really are used in what place. So I know I'm speaking in sort of like a whole or more of a philosophical term, or like, way of thinking, a stance, but I know we're gonna map the shit out of this later on, but that's just how it feels right now. And I'm trying to wrap my head around how a normal person thinks about the game more these days, because I feel like that's the way we should attack Blizzard, right? Because we can play the game, differently, but if we're the 0.0001%, our opinion does not matter. It just doesn't. It simply doesn't. We are too small a fraction, right? It's all about how the general populace is affected by this class and this spec, and how it feels for them, not us. So this is dragged on long enough, but I guess it's appropriate because it's Disc Priest after all. So. Knock something over. So anyways, I'll see you guys. Sorry for the long video. Hopefully I dropped some kind of insight or you learned something. I'm sure that there'll be some in the comments that completely destroys me, but I welcome that. That'll be fun. Alright, see you guys. Thank you for watching.